4, 3, 2, 1. We're going on live.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are we all doing? We do hope everyone is healthy and safe. Thank you all for attending our 5th Career Orientation, Mentoring, and Program Advising Series, or C.O.M.P.A.S. Just to give you a brief background, C.O.M.P.A.S is a series of featured interviews from respective industry experts from different disciplines. They will share their journey to success, from the reason why they chose their college degree and how it affected their current career. Our speaker for today is Ms. Inday Espina-Varona, a veteran, award-winning journalist who writes for ABS-CBN News and the International Catholic News Agency, Likas News. She is the former chairperson of the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines, or NUJP, and the first Filipino to win the Reporters Without Borders Global Prize for Independence. She is an international fellow of the John S. Knight Professional Journalism Fellowships in Stanford University. Ms. Inday Varona is also the recipient of the Canadian government's Mashall McLuhan Fellowship and was conferred when she won the top prize for investigative journalism in the Jaime V Ongpin Prize for Excellence in Journalism for her series, The Rape of World War II Vessels in the Philippine Seas. Ms. Inday has won other awards for her coverage of indigenous peoples and the LGBTQ community in the country. Without any further ado, please welcome Ms. Inday Espina-Varona.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Ako po si Inday Espina-Varona. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm excited. Now, straddling worlds. Yun ang unang linya ko sa application ko sa John S. Knight Professional Fellowships. Doon, kung makita nyo sa cover page, nakalagay, Journalist Embracing Change. And I'm sure hindi lang ako. This is really for you, no? Pero I'm gonna tell you now, na iinggit ako sa inyo. Now, I'm going to be 57 years old next month. What, 3 years shy of retirement, right? And yet, our lives have been upended, not only by the fast changes in technology over the last 15 years, but also, of course, by this pandemic. No? So we've had all to struggle and to cope with the sudden changes in work style and lifestyle. Pero dito, and I'm sure maraming kabataan na parang nalulungkot, di ba? Parang, what are we gonna do now? Our families are hurting. Our parents have, slashed salaries right now. We just saw that 45% of the adult population is unemployed at the moment. So it sounds bad, and to a large extent, it is bad, And yet, and this is not a platitude, sa mga pagkakataong ito, malaki ang puwang para sa mga kabataan tulad nyo. For one thing, digital technology is the fallback of many businesses, from small to big. Kayo ang digital natives, no? Kayo yung nakakaalam. Yung apo ko, and I have 3 grandchildren, no? Minsan siya yung tinatanong ko, biglang gumagawa sila ng kanta from apps. Mamaya-maya, they're playing with their Legos and there's all little toys there. And suddenly they have a movie. And I don't even know how they do it. And they try to explain, and I do know a little, but it's just really beyond my capacity. No? But kayo, I'm sure, kakayanin nyo yan. But there is one thing that you should hold on to. Sa panahon ng pandemya kung saan tayo napipilitan manatili sa mga bahay natin, ang pangangailangan numero uno ng mundo ay connection. The world needs connection. They need people to talk to. They need people to tell them how to do the things they find hard to do. They need experts to show, DIY paano to break down something that sounds complex pero pala napakasimple. At kayo yun eh. Kayo ang nakakagawa niyan. What you need right now is empathy. You try to go outside of yourselves and be interested in people. Never mind if it's a stranger you've never met before. This is how we do these things, I don't even know how many of you are there, but I'm all interested in your lives because I'm sure my universal truths, that tie us together. And I am as much willing to learn from you as I am willing to teach you the little that I know right now, no? So, nung nag-apply ako sa John S. Knight Fellowships, medyo naiba raw ako dun sa ibang aplikante. Marami sa mga aplikante ay mga specialists, no? Nung nakita nila yung aking portfolio, because that's what you give, the portfolio of articles and stuff that you've published or aired, no, over the last year, medyo hindi nila alam kung matawa sila o pumito sila o tumaas ang kilay nila o pumalakpak sila. Kasi iba, ang lawak nga ng aking sinabit sa kanila. No? So ang isa, Brother in Arms, nakikita niyo dyan siguro, it's about the hunt for terrorists in the Philippines. Yung pangalawang pinigay ko is a series on reproductive health setbacks, panahon to ni President Arroyo. No? There was an op-ed on press freedom that I gave, which was published in the International Herald Tribune. But I think, sabi nila sa akin, what intrigued them was that I had siguro I don't know, the gall or the chutzpah to submit a literary travelogue package after may terrorismo ka tapos biglang may travel package, no? At ito ay yung tungkol sa Melaka, Malaysia, one of my favorite places. May rock and roll history yan, mga Chinese princesses, Dutch mercenaries, pirates on the high seas, no? Then there was a sidebar, a profile of a rebellious painter, and then there was a story about an encounter with a masseur with magic hands. Yung parang sabi nila, well, we want people who are going to come here and not just bury themselves in books. And that's what young people should be, no? Explorative, adventurous. Kahit na nasa bahay tayo lahat. Ang totoo, by nature, I'm just too curious to keep to any one field of journalism. And dyan sa bagay na yan, para akong young, no? Para akong bata. Kasi kayo yun ang gusto nyo eh. You're still exploring. Where do you think you're going to fit in? You're exploring where your real strengths lie, no? And so, yan ang gawin nyo sa panahon na ito. Explore, explore, explore. Ngayon, yan ang ating pag-uusapan ngayon. Ngayon sa JVO Awards, ganun ka ako kalawak ng kung ano-ano lang kung anong anything that interests me, I'm gonna jump and follow it. So in 1 year, naka-finalist ako both explanatory and investigative. Yung isa talagang tinatawag hardline conflict na pinag-uusapan, the capture of the Moro Islamic Liberation Fronts, no, and the downside for government. Yung kabila naman, prostituted children and youth, no, sa Manila's tourism strip. So that same year then, I directed and edited a top prize sa Science and Health on tuberculosis. Health naman siya. So iba-iba siya. And I think that's that's what you need, whether you actually go to journalism, communications, or explore other fields, is kung sino man yung managers nyo na hahawak sa inyo, they will always value people who have broader interests kasi alam nila you will be more enthusiastic about challenges that come your way. So this one, the winning piece for that won me also the McLuhan Fellowship, medyo proud talaga ako dito kasi kahapon lang at saka nung this past week, nakita ko itong dalawang stories, no? At para ang feeling ko noon is, this happened what? This happened 2006, no? Na binigay sa akin ng prize in 2007. And I go like, wow, it's more than 10 years. But now the impact of what we did, I can see. Because that's exactly what happened when we wrote the series. Tinigil ang pag-salvage ng mga World War II vessels, which were not ours in the first place, which are owned by the US and Japan. No? So we helped that story, we helped preserve these historical treasures. Okay. Now, hindi madali gumawa ng malaking storya. So, to write that, I bought 6 or 7 books. Ang research namin ganito kakapal, hindi kasali ang mga dokumentong kinalkal namin sa Securities and Exchange Commission. But it was fun. No? Now, ito naman dito, sa sunod na slide, ito yung sa LGBT. I've covered that for decades na rin. And doon sa Lumad, no? The indigenous peoples of Mindanao and also in the far north of Northern Luzon. At itong quote ni Maya Angelou, I want you to remember this because ito yung sinasabi, we can be as bright, you know, we can have very high IQs, but what the world really needs to understand problems is empathy, puso. Yung hindi ka abstract, kundi pinapakita mo ang tunay na buhay ng mga taong naaapektuhan ng sari-sari problema sa mundo. Okay, next please. Pero hindi ako all grim and determined. I pour in a lot of passion and anger on human rights stories and environmental disasters and all that. But I also pour as much passion into writing about American Idol. At andito sa kabila, makikita niyo yung mga title na yan, medyo naughty, no? So this is music, blues, Ellie Ellie Quite Contrary is actually Ellie Buendia. The road less traveled was my dreams to be a kung fu master when I was a young girl and finally sitting down and watching another young girl in China. And you know, you just write because it's timeless. These are the stories that will never grow old 20 years down the road because it tells about universal truth at kung ano ang nagpapatakbo ng puso, no, ang damdamin at yung passion ng iba't ibang tao. Cruising in the Land of Labuyo was about a gay friend who was doing just that. Fire in the Belly was about aphrodisiacs, etc., etc. So sari-sari. Kung anong matisod na interest, dive in. There's no wrong story. There's only dapat good research, honest writing, and the willingness to listen to others. Next, please. Okay. Hindi lang ako manunulat. Nung binigay sa akin yung Reporters Without Borders na awards, naibanggit nila yung isang malaking papel sa buhay ko, yung pagiging aktivista ko at ang pagiging campaigner ko for advocacies. They did mention Babae Ako, which is a network of women, organizations, and individuals that I helped organize that one day, to our great surprise, was named by Time Magazine as one of the most influential groups in social media in that year, no? So dito, makikita natin what made it tick. Kung makita mo lahat ng istorya dyan. Because it was all about real stories of real people. Real people telling their stories. Of course, journalists tell stories of other people. But see, in the era of digital technology and citizen journalism, you all have the tools, cheap tools at this point, to tell your stories the way you want to tell your stories. And don't let anybody tell you that your stories are not important. Example, si nanay mo, maganda palang gardener. Ang ganda bigla kasi medyo hindi na siya nakatrabaho, medyo na-lay off, and she turned that garden, now that she has time, into a blooming vegetable, patches of vegetables or flowers. You know what you should do? You talk about what you talk with your mom as she plants, and then you offer, because I'm sure a lot of you know how to do layout and even interesting videos. You interview your mom, you show it out there, and all other moms will be interested in her. No? So ganun din, meron akong pamangkin, hindi namin alam, dahil accounting siya, it's such a, okay, accounting. And suddenly, we discovered that he knows how to beautifully edit music videos. And hindi lang yan, because he has now time to explore, it turns out he can write poetry too. So, explore lang. Walang mali, walang tama sa mga una nyong ginagawa. You can talk about it with friends, saan pwede ma-improve, but you already have all the options facing you right now at the time of the pandemic. Next, please. Next slide, please. Okay. So, aktivista ako. That's a major part of me. It always has been. It always will be. So, dyan kami sa press freedom, and dyan kami dito naman sa journalist, no? Freedom of expression and press freedom. Now, see, naalala ko pa nung bata ko, syempre ayaw ni daddy. Diba? Sabi niya, bababa yung grado mo. But eventually, he discovered, and one day, while we were having lunch, he told me, malaki pala yung natulong ng buhay mo dati. Sabi niya, you were shy and sheltered dati, but because you had to live with different kinds of people, nagkaroon ka ng skills on listening, no? Nagkaroon ka ng skills sa pagtrato sa tao. And this is what you should do ngayon sa pandemic. Of course, hindi kayo nakakalabas dahil bawal sa mga kabataan, ano? Pero, yun ang if you put on that mic and you do a little podcast and you talk about your dreams and you talk about, let's say, being heartbroken because now nag-break na kayo, etc. If you give a little advice, you can start a podcast on whatever themes that you want. You want to be a modern day Dear Abby, and get other people to tell you their problems and maybe advise them. If you're good at that, go ahead and do it. If you want to do little advertising videos for people like your mom who are now selling vegetables, or new chefs who don't know how to navigate the internet, do it. Kahit konti-konti lang, magkakaroon kayo ng kita. And the thing is, you practice, because you cannot learn the writing and you cannot learn the skills just in the classroom. You actually learn it by practicing. Next, please. Okay. So yan, filingera, tingnan nyo, filingera ako, di ba? Kakanta-kanta kami ng Do You Hear the People Sing dyan sa taas ng entablado. And this is an array of artists and journalists, and that's my brother who's now chair of NUJP. That's the artist Maypaner and other activists out there. This one here, national artists and well-known visual artists went to the CCP to create a huge, protest mural to signify their call, to stand up for human rights. Next, please. So tinatanong ako ba ay naging magaling na journalist dahil naging tibak ako, or was it my journalism that made me an activist? And I don't think, hindi pwedeng ma-separate yung dalawa yan eh. Parang symbiotic yung relationship niya. You don't have to be an activist, but I hope to some extent you will stand up and let your voices be heard on matters that count, because otherwise we are never going to change our country. And we probably all agree that we love our country, no matter sometimes how difficult it seems to be loved, no? Ito yun eh. We are all made up of all shades of the rainbow, and it's a great thing right now to explore. So now you can't be with your clique the whole time. Now you're there, and you've got an entire world of very different people. And believe me, a lot of them will be able to teach you things, to open yourself, your eyes and your mind to different lives out there. Next, please. Bakit ako nagkaganito? Next slide, please. Hello? Can you hear me?
Sorry, hold on.
Okay. Okay. I have been straddling worlds since I was a child. Hindi ko alam noon eh, magiging journalist ako o magiging tulad ng daddy ko o magiging doktor ako tulad ng nanay ko, no? So, ito kasi si Graciano Lapusina was the older brother of my grandmother. So parang medyo dun siguro talaga nabaling yung attention ko. Kasi nung nakita ko yung syllabus ng medicine, ay ang tagal pa pala. At sa panahon na yon, pumasok ako sa university 1980. Parang the world was in ferment. These were the last years of the Marcos dictatorship. So I felt I wanted to sink my claws, into something that would allow me to immediately serve my people. And that's what I did. I became a journalist. I became a writer. Okay. Although I've always been writing, even as a young child, and I learned typing on my dad's lap at the age of 3. Mali-mali. Hanggang ngayon, mali-mali yung type ko. Mabilis nga lang ako mag-type. Next, please. Okay. Ito yung buhay namin dati, no? Radyo. Nakikinig kami sa radyo. Wala naman, minsan lang ang TV. Bawal sa amin ang dating TV. Ang balita sa radyo. Ito, telepono. Di ba? Ewan ko kung meron pa kayong rotary phone sa bahay nyo, no? Dati may party line pa kami. Pagkausap mo yung crush mo, biglang may nakikinig pala. You could hear somebody actually breathing on the other line. That's the party line, no? But my dad and my mom, even if she was a doctor, they taught us the magic of stories. We would always be talking about, and there was no story so wild, no? Kahit ano pang kalokohan maabot ng aming imaginasyon, anything goes. So when you write stories these days, speculative, di ba, ngayon? Because like, who would even believe that we would be living the lives we're living now? So kung ganito na tayo, parang, we're living in an unbelievable world, hey, all bets are off. Explore whatever parallel universe in your mind that you want to explore and write stories. Put yourselves there. If it makes you happy, if it makes you less despondent, go ahead. Tagalog, Ilocano, Ilonggo, o English ang ginagamit nyo, just do it. Just promise me, write at least an hour every day. And it doesn't matter if you don't immediately show it, but it's in the writing that you will be practicing your skills. In a month after, you can look back and see whether you want to change or want to remain a story and move in the same pattern. Next, please. Hindi ako buhay dito kasi hindi naman ako first quarter stormer, pero ang daddy ko ito yung nangyari. Ito yung nakita niya itong mga ibang massacre at mga gulo. So kinikwento niya sa akin. So that's what made me very interested in how things were going on. It wasn't the what, it wasn't the where, it wasn't the when even. It was what really made me curious was why things were happening and how these things were happening. You don't need to be a journalist to appreciate that. Kahit anong profession nyo, never be content with who, what, or where and when. The things that make the world move are why and how. Without that, there would have been no progress in this world. Next, please. So ito yung tipping point. Hindi ko na dahil hindi naman tong talagang topic natin, yung pagkamatay ni Senator Ninoy Aquino, at yung dagsan ng tao. Siguro, I'm sure your grandfathers and grandmothers, your older aunts, maybe your mom and dad when they were young, kasi they're much younger than I am, I'm sure, So yun na. At that point, I was already still in my teens, but about to enter the world of journalism. Next, please. Bumalik ako sa Bacolod. Ngayon, syempre martial law, walang dyaryo, walang ano. Pero noong 1981 kasi, officially, na-lift na yung martial law. May mga ilang dyaryo na, community papers, may radyo na sa probinsya. I went home to Bacolod, and that's where I started. But even with the so-called lifting, patuloy pa rin, Ayan si Mama Edith Burgos, si Joe Burgos, pinaguhuli ilang beses, sina Ceres Doyo of the Inquirer, they were being arrested or invited for rather severe interrogations, So dahil walang matinong mainstream publications at that time, lumabas ng Mosquito Press, whether it was underground like Taliban ng Bayan or whether there used to be fashion magazines that eventually became Mr. and Miss, the fighting magazine tabloid that we knew before the downfall of Ferdinand Marcos. Next, please. Umuwi ako sa Negros ng panahon na yon. Ang Negros ay kilala na social volcano. Dito talaga nahon ang skills ko. Ngayon kasi, makikita mo may beat, Sa defense ka lang nagko-cover, o Manila City Hall ka lang nagko-cover, o kaya sa Malacanang ka nagko-cover, o sa Foreign Affairs ka nagko-cover. Noong panahon namin, pag ikaw ay nasa probinsya at ikaw ay nagsusulat, let's say, for the wire agency, which I used to do, and then later, after pinayagan na yung national dailies, I used to work for national dailies. Solo mo. Cover mo yung buong isla. Ang laki ng Negros kaya, pang-apat na pinakamalaking isla, Occidental and Oriental. Bahala ka kung paano mo gagawin. So ikaw magpaplano kung anong hahabulin mo storya. Siguraduhin mo lang hindi ka maiiskupan, So ikaw ang tatansya lahat. So I think the independence gave me the skills to make the choices that I would later be making as a more senior journalist. It allowed me to go deeper because I didn't have to report every afternoon sa editor ko. It allowed me to be to be more magpakita ng initiative kasi paano ka pupunta from one point to another sa isang malaking isla, no? And we were a social volcano at ito yung panahon na gera ng gera sa Negros at dito makita mo yung batang yan at saka yung sa baba na parang ang daming tao. These were the things I actually covered. So when people say that Mashall was a paradise, let me tell you, no, it wasn't. Because I saw Joel Abong die. My mom was their doctor. She was the head pediatrician of the regional hospital, and she wept because so many children were coming in that thin, dying of malnutrition in one of the most richest lands in this country. Akala mo galing sa Sahara sa Africa, pero hindi, galing sa Negros, kung saan ang joke, ginapiko, ginapala ang kwarta. No? And the one below that is something I wouldn't wish on anyone. It's the Escalante massacre. So many people dead, so many wailing. They were killed simply for protesting that they needed more food, that they needed better wages. This was in 1985, just a few months before Marcos actually fell. Next, please. Yung Escalante massacre, kapapanganak ko lang sa anak ko sa older son ko. Dito kami, I was working for the mainstream, no? But we also had an alternative network of journalists who also worked. Many of us worked for the mainstream, but we wanted to band together so we could analyze better the stories and to give it then to others who were working in radios na nahihirapan sila kumuha ng resources. So kami rin, libre yan lahat sa aming, kami-kaming mga journalists na local ang nagbibigay at gumagamit rin ng mga istorya. Next please. At yan, no, kita mo, puro papel. No? Ngayon, hindi ko natatalakay yung EDSA. Nag-EDSA, alam ko na yan. Alam na natin lahat yan. Then the next rock and roll time was when there were coup attempts against then President Cory Aquino. Yung mga nag-alsa kay Marcos, nag-alsa rin kay Cory. And si Gringo, who is now, si Enrile. Then, as the military officers were getting restive, they were also killing activists. And that really hurt me and made me very, very, very angry because some of these activists were people I actually knew and loved, like Lian Alejandro, who I had met in the University of the Philippines. No? May Menjola Massacre. Kung mag-google nyo yan, makikita nyo ang daming mga photojournalists na kilala ngayon who were there covering it. And they're still haunted by what happened during that day. Next, please. Ito yung medyo nandito ako talaga. Kasi nasa Manila na ako. Nasa Manila Times na ako actually nito. No? Una, ito yung Rizal Day bombing. Ako yung editor on board noon I was dispatching reporters and getting their stories. And I wrote about a wounded little girl. Ito naman, ito yung kanina naka-finalist ako. Ito yung fall of the MILF camps. No? So, nakatutok ako dyan. Dito, sa ERAP Resign, ito yung muntik na rin ako mag-resign sa Manila Times na yan. Kasi nung una, ayaw nung publisher namin, who was Mark Jimenez at that time, na ilabas yung speech yung unang paputok ni Chavit Singson. So gusto ko na mag-resign, but my publisher, who I love very much, Adrian Cristobal, said, pagbigyan mo siya ngayong araw, bukas, lumarga ka. Lahat ng storya sa ERAP impeachment, ikaw na ang gumawa, ikaw na mag-edit, ikaw na mag-direct. And so I stayed put, waited it out one more day, and that's how it is in journalism. You lose one day to be able to continue the next day and the days after. And until ERAP resigned. Next, please. So yan, pagkatapos si Gloria naman, nagkaroon ng Magdalo Uprising, nagkaroon siya ng After Hello Garci. Marami sa kanila itong nagtuturo na tao ngayon ay ito kasama ni Nick Feldon sa customs na napunta sa NAIA, aviation na to ngayon, si Milo Mastricampo. The world is a funny place, when you have these rebels now in government. Next, please. Pag pinag-uusapan ngayon ang human rights violations under Duterte, tapos naririnig ko yung mga trolls, minumura nila ako, sasabihin nila, dilawan ka, bakit hindi ka nagre-reklamo dati? Natatawa na lang ako kasi if there's something that I'm proud of, it's that I've been an equal opportunity critic of all administrations, which is what journalists should be, which is what citizens should be, no? Babantayan natin kasi sila yung mga namumuno. Hindi pwedeng boboto lang natin sila tapos tatalikod na lang tayo tapos kasi sila na yung boss. Pwede na nilang gawin lahat ng gusto nilang gawin. Our country will never move ahead if that is the kind of attitude that we have, no? So these were the stories, some of the stories that I wrote during the time of Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. Next, please. Sa panahon ni Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, we were either second or third most dangerous country for the practice of journalism. Ang dalawang nauuna lang na sa atin lagi is a country in the middle of war like Syria or Iraq or something, or Iran at that time, or a country in the grip of narcotics cartel, which Colombia was at that time, no? Tapos tayo na yung sunod doon. So medyo masama talaga ang tama sa journalists. And then of course, the Ampatuan massacre happened. And this was, by the way, the first big event where it was a citizen journalist, a soldier, if you recall, I think rightly, na nagbigay ng unang proof that something really bad and really evil had happened in Ampatuan town in Maguindanao province. Next, please. Social media since then already began playing a major role in any political event in this country. Pinoy na to, no? Noy Aquino na to. If you say dito, Ondoy, the damage, the disaster, the tragedy that was Ondoy, rolled across social media. Hindi nakapasok yung maraming journalists at that time eh. So there were citizens it was mga citizens, taong bayan na ang nagbabalita kung ano nangyayari kasi hindi makalusot yung mga journalists sa mga pinakaapektadong lugar doon, no? And then of course this one, the first big event sa Aquino administration, the Quirino hostage taking. Hindi pa masyadong marami ang social media during that time, but people went to social media to discuss the event. When I say very hard lessons learned, kasi dyan napilitan ang mga newsrooms, all newsrooms, na mag-recast ng kanilang ethical and professional standards in covering this kind of disastrous events, no? Hindi pwedeng wag ka magpa-interview sa hostage taker, maraming mga steps, mga hard lessons because people died here that we really took to heart. And I wish that it wouldn't happen, but we never know. You can't blame media but for that, but definitely we partly felt very bad about what happened. And dahil pinokpok rin kami ng taong bayan, so talagang may self-correction rin talaga ang media eh. So natuto sila din. The next, ito yan, yung Mama Sapano was where social media really woke up, no? Grabe talagang sigawan noon eh. Nasa ng Pangulo, etc., nung panahon na yon, no? This was the SAF 44 na namatay sila doon. Next, please. Now, when I was in a very nice, quiet print career, even if I was winning awards. When Maria Ressa then, who was vice president, senior vice president for news and current affairs of ABS-CBN, asked me to come in. Sabi ko sa kanya, wait a minute, Maria, I don't even know anything about broadcasts. I'm a writer, is what I am, and frankly, at that point, I wasn't watching too much TV at na ganon, no? And sabi niya, no, I want you to, you can do it. It's easy for anybody who's a senior journalist to make the jump, which is true. A lot of them, Christian Esguerra, Linda Humilia, they were all from print journalism backgrounds, no? And they made that leap with flying colors. Me naman, hindi naman ako on-cam talent. What I did was I took over BMPM or Bayan Mo, Ipatron Mo for 3 years. Na? So 100,000 umalis ako, 700,000. And see, when people give young people a bad name, parang apathetic, fake news, hindi. Because when young people, or adults for that matter, are given the skills to hone their reporting abilities, and when they have the passion to do so, because buhay nila lahat ang nire-report nila. Itong Pinay helped by patroller in South Korea. She saved her. She was battered. She went to finding help for her. Actually, tawag sa Pilipinas, tawag all across South Korea. These were people who cared. And in caring, they knew that they had to tell the story because they instinctively knew that in telling the story, more help would be coming the way of this Filipino OFW. Itong ACE cargo, no, numerous complaints, pinasara. No? So these were people who reported on their problems. We helped them, of course. Sasabihin namin, sigurado ka ba? Baka tanungin nyo. But they were, for all intents and purposes, reporters with guidance from more senior reporters like us. No? Pero buhay nila ang nire-report nila, not some other person's life. And with everything happening right now, you can actually do the same. It doesn't take a lot, no? So baha man dyan. It started with baha, a lindol, but it eventually pushed into we need to make things better in our communities, or we need to show people how we can help other people, which was what they did also. Next, please. Ginagawa na yan sa social media, but you need to do it in a more organized and more structured way. Next, please. So, Duterte na ngayon. Malaki yung problema natin. When I took over BMPM, Maria and I used to think that social media was a brave new world. You know what? No matter the battering that we've received since then, I still believe it's a brave new world. This is only a temporary setback. In fact, the troll army has actually been retreating. We need people to stand together for the truth, to tell the stories that matter, not made up concoctions and tales, but the stories of your lives and how you want it to change for the better. Next, please. Next, please. Konti na lang to. Okay. So, ito yung mga attacks na babaguhin to, kasi I want to go to the more upbeat side of it. So, yan ang mga attacks sa atin. Suffice it to say, we're in a bad place. Philippine media, we're under attack a lot of times. Okay, next please. Next please. Okay. Ito dito, naka matrix 1, matrix 2, matrix 3 ako. Hindi ko maintindihan, no? But we know that they have a penchant for just spreading lies, and let's leave it at that. Next, please. So, ito yung gusto denial ng operation sa mga critical press. But no matter what's happening, the press is fighting. We want you to fight for us, not fight for us, fight with us. because one company that goes down means one less platform of information. So we need a marketplace that is diverse for you to be able to choose, to see and to examine which stories out there are actually true. Hindi yung from anonymous web pages, Facebook pages na hindi nyo lang kilala kung sino mga nagpapalakad niyan. The difference with media is my vetting and my accountability kami pag nagkamali kami. Pag anonymous pages na hindi nyo alam kung sino yun eh. Next please. Next please. Okay. This is what I love to do best. Workshops. Sayang, I know. Hindi pwede sa panahon na ngayon. But see, makikita mo sometimes we're in big auditoriums, but sometimes we're under tents. We're in the streets. We have Manila paper. Very little, no? So, kahit saan, ang education, walang limit yan eh. It's what you want to teach. It's what you have to teach. It's the passion of students to learn and also to teach us some more that is more important. So pwede yan mangyari ngayon, may Zoom, may Facebook Live, etc. You can do it. Choose your expertise. Ayan, ganyan lang kami. Oh. Pag wala na eh, walang PowerPoint, walang ano, ayan, sulat kamay. It doesn't matter. The important thing is we never stop learning. We never stop exchanging stories. We never stop experimenting on the stories that we want to tell. Next, please. So citizens are fighting back, and this is it. Nobody is going to tell the truth except us. If you care for the truth, you better be ready to be your own truth teller. Nandun na tayo, marami tayong fact-checking, marami na yung kinokorek natin yung mga kaibigan o kaya minsan si mama, si papa, si lolo, si lola, aminin. Pero hindi yun sapat eh. Hindi sapat ang magsabing kasinungalingan yan. Mas mahalaga, magkwento ka, ito, ang katotohanan. Nakita ko to eh, diretso. Tapos maayos ang paglagay mo ng mga datos at ng daloy ng kwento. Mas mahalaga yan. Next, please. Next, please. Hello? Okay. So, yan na. I said that, to defeat disinformation, sawang-sawa na kayo sa fake news, huwag kayong magtagbo. Huwag kayong lumayas. Huwag kayong don't put yourself under the covers. Become truth tellers. Write about inspiring stories. Nobody needs to be an investigative journalist, there are, meron talagang ganyan. But all of you can write inspiring but real stories about real people and about the problems that they managed to overcome. And we need a lot of that at this point. Kahit lang from your end, kahit lang from your family. Or even how-tos. How are you now budgeting something that is a monthly budget that is less than 10,000? Paano kayo nag-uusap dyan? People would like to know what you do that makes it work. That doesn't mean that we don't okay na tayo sa maliit na sweldo. But at least in the coping, we are able to help people. Next, please. And you can actually interview your nanay because she knows best pagdating sa tipiran. And this is the more important thing. This is where you're really good. And I'm going to stop it here, okay? Ito ang hinahanap ngayon ng mga tao sa mundo pagdating sa communication. They want it authentic. They want it real. They want it warm and human and intimate. Because there will always be, stages for the bombastic, for oratory, for declaiming, for the big abstract concepts. May lugar dyan eh. But what people need right now are stories that they can identify with, na pwede silang matuto. And ito yung mga tips eh. Kayo ang magsulat ng mensahe ninyo. No? Reveal and expose yourself. Don't be afraid. Na-notice ko yun sa kabataan, ang galing-galing natin pag nagkwentuhan tayo face-to-face ng ganito, di ba? Pag sinabi ng, sige, isulat mo na, pagbalik sa akin, nasaan na yung kaibigang kausap ko kanina? So this is it lang. Just be yourself and find the answer. But before you can find the answer, you need to ask the questions. And last po na lang, the last slide. Dive into whatever you want. Ito na, this is the last slide. But you will never learn anything until you read. I don't care what you read, but just read. And ask and challenge everything. You don't need to believe in me. Challenge me. You know, mali yan. That should be listen with your heart, hindi lang utak. At tandaan natin, ang ethics is for everyone. Hindi exclusive turf ng journalist ang ethics. And this, lahat tayo storytellers. Naghahanap ngayon ang mundo ng mga kwento kung saan tayo makapagkapit-bisig, kung saan natin makikita ang ating mga sarili. Magkakaroon tayo ng mapa sa paggaling, sa paglakbay uli, sa panahon na pwede nang maglakbay. Do not abandon the dream for a better world. Kayo yun eh. You are the better world. And we are watching out for you. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much for that very inspiring lecture, Miss Inday. I am very confident that many of the audiences learned a lot from your presentation, most especially in giving inspiration to exploring opportunities during this pandemic. Ma'am, before we proceed, I would like to reiterate here one of our Facebook comments on our Facebook Live from Ms. Teki Emperador. More power and hopes from our true journalists to do their difficult task, how to battle righteousness, social injustice, and do it constructively from the current administration, ma'am. Now, we proceed, ma'am, to the next part of the presentation, the question and answer. So we have collated questions from our audiences and we hope to get answers from you. Ma'am, are we ready for the question and answer?
Yes. Okay. Let me drink some water.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am. So let me correct myself, ma'am. That was not a comment. That was a question. So from Ms. Teki Emperador.
I think I know her. You're gonna know.
Yeah. How to battle righteousness, social injustice, and do it constructively from the current administration? That's the question, ma'am.
Okay. Rule number one, I've always said this. Never put anything on your social media page that you won't sign on to. No? Kumbaga, hindi mystic yan eh. Golden rule yan eh. Mas madaling makinig sa taong medyo mahinahon, kahit galit. Maging sharp. Ba't maging mahinahon? Pag lahat na kasi sumisigaw na dyan na parang lasing, hindi mo maintindihan ang nasa palasyo, dadagdagan pa natin. Wala na tayong mangyari lahat, di ba? Also, alam ko, that's a question asked by young people in workshop after workshop. Paano namin mako-convince si nanay at si tatay na ito yun, hindi yung kung ano-anong inuulit-ulit lang nila. Malamang ang mga mama at papa at mga lola at lolo nyo lumaki kasi sa panahon na walang press freedom. Na lahat ng mga dyaryo ay censored. At hindi lumawak sa critical thought. Walang practice, kumbaga. So, come at it from a perspective of love. Be firm. Dapat lang. Correctionan nyo pag mali. Pero wag naman sa mainit na mainit kayo dalawa, magsusumpukan kayo. Medyo relax konti, atras ka konti. The following day, medyo nakangiti si nanay, pakita mo sa kanya, nay, pakita ko, ito yung storya na to, may datos, no? Mag-aral ka kasi hindi pwedeng babanggain natin emosyon sa emosyon. Kailangan natin mag-aral, tapos kailangan natin magbigkas in a way that will not embarrass your parents, for example. Because, presidents come and go, but we're going to be living with our parents for the rest of their lives and our lives. So try to make it easier for them to see the truth. No? Ganito lang. Huwag kang mag-personal na atake kung hindi ka sigurado. Huwag nang sabihin. Huwag magkalat-kalat ng mga chismis. Hindi lang ang mga Duterte people ang nagkakalat ng chismis. Sa totoo lang, no? So be very sure. Go check with news organizations and see, yan nga ba talaga ang nangyayari? Better yet, check with 3 different news organizations so you can see different angles. The more you read, the more you review, the more you will able to see, ito pala yun. And the easier it will be for you to explain to your family and to your friends exactly what is going on in the world.
Okay po, ma'am. Okay, so we have another question, ma'am, from our Facebook Live from Mr. Hamil Lesagis. How have we become so indifferent? And does this speak any truth to the mentality of the Filipino?
Okay, I don't know if this is going to be a popular answer, but this is my answer. I don't think it's a question na puro tayo bato. I think it's a question that so many of us, let's admit it, have been very disappointed. And we're not even going to point fingers here. But EDSA was such a big dream. And many of us, dahil aminin natin, karamihan ay mahihirap, karamihan ay gutom, karamihan ay nakaharap sa injustice day in, day out. No? And even the lower middle class have felt that lash din. Ibahin natin, ang ayaw kong marinig kasi sabi, kasi bobotante. Hindi eh. Ilagay natin muna ang sarili natin. That's what I mean when listening with heart a little bit. Eh. Let's put ourselves in their shoes muna. We need to understand where they're coming from and then use what we know to reach them with the truth. Hindi pwedeng sa simula pa lang, tawagin natin sila na bobo. Kasi may kanya-kanya tayong pinanggalingan. Mas mauunawaan ko yung mahirap o mauunawaan ko yung kapit sa patalim, nagka-problema ng malaki yung buhay nila. OFW, sabihin pa natin na nandun sa ibang bansa na natatakot para sa nangyayari sa kanilang mga anak. Mas naunawaan ko yun eh, at nakakaintindi sila dahan-dahan eh. Alam nyo kung sino yung dapat tutukan? Yung madalas rin nagsasabi na bobotante. Saan ba? Sino ang nananatiling okay sa EJ case? It's not the poor. The poor were the first to pull away because they were the first to be victims. It's the privileged people, those who benefit from the shortcuts that governments take, that continue to support abuses and atrocities. And this is where I'm going to tell everybody who has a little bit more in life, whether it's in education, whether it's in income, whether it's a family support system, you speak out. It is not enough to moan about the people who continue supporting evil. If nobody stands up and nobody steps up, and nobody speaks out bravely, then evil will continue to win. We can't moan if we're not willing to risk it. We can't all be heroes, but we need to put ourselves out there. It is our country. It's the only country that we have.
Okay, ma'am. So we will proceed now to the next questions po from our audiences. Let's go to uh, when you were still on your youth, ma'am. What is the most challenging part of being a student pursuing their dreams and at the same time being an activist, rallying and fighting for what is right?
Okay. Um, what I learned in activism actually helped my studies. Like, the research that activists do can actually be brought to the classroom, which I did very well during that time. I dropped out on purpose because ito na yung banggaan na talaga ni Marcos. I'm not telling anybody to do that, but I'm not stopping anybody. But iba rin ang meron kang um, some academic foundation because it helps you later in life, Um, paano, pwede naman kasi magbigayan at magtulungan ang mga grupo sa mga activist organizations. Kasi hindi naman 24/7 ang trabaho. Aminin natin, no? Naging bata rin ako. So alam ko na minsan, nagiging excuse yung activism, but sometimes it's just a question of managing our time better. So a little bit more discipline so that we give our causes and our passion what they deserve. At the same time, hindi rin tayo disrespectful sa naghihirap nating magulang. Now, ako, I don't know, but if you think as I needed to back then, iba-iba kasi yung panahon, no? When I needed back then, when I thought that my choice was to serve my people fully, I just said I would. It makes it easier. It may give you problems with your parents probably, pero I remember a very wise older activist telling me dati, alam mo, Inday, kung hindi natin mapaunawa sa magulang natin, baka mas mahirap magpaunawa sa estranghero dun sa kabilang village, mas buhusan nyo muna yung panahon. Don't give up on your parents. Nandun talaga yung galit. Natural, may kanya-kanyang dream sila But don't give up explaining to them. Because if you're able to resolve the contradictions within your family with love, because I'm sure both of you love each other, then maybe you will be able to find a compromise that won't break a family, there's no one answer to that except try. Because ang una, para sa mga aktivista, at ang sabi sa akin dati, ang una, kailangan nating anong tawag dyan, kailangan natin ma-convince, ang una nating kailangan ma-bring to our side is natural, the people closest to us. So they should be the ones you should exert all the charm and the logic and the studies para mapaliwanag sa kanila na may mga bagay na kailangan ng mga ibang effort para matuwid ang mga problema.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much for that answer po. Now we will proceed with the last question. With the current media landscape that we have today, where journalism and media reportage are threatened by the unstoppable phenomenon of fake news, is it still ideal for an aspiring journalist to pursue the truth-telling profession of media and journalism?
Yes, because the purveyors, history has shown us that the purveyors, the peddlers, the manufacturers of lies, they never last long. The books, the poetry, the songs, the films, and the stories that we remember now, long after their authors or the composers have gone, are those that deal with the truth. The lies will be defeated, but we need to work to defeat them. And we need to be out there, not 5 years down the road, not in 2022, now, now na.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you again, ma'am, for answering all of our questions. I think we exhausted all of the questions on our Facebook Live. Ma'am, we thank you so much for gracing us with today's session. Your stories are very much needed in this time to remind us that hard work always pays off no matter what.
Okay, just one last thing. And
Okay, ma'am.
I always tell my reporters this. So they see me as two things. They see me as their best friend. They see me as a tough taskmaster. The more I believe in a cause and the more I am passionate about it, the stricter I am on myself. Because there is nothing a writer or an artist or a journalist wants than to be able to give out a work of art, a story so good that few people can poke holes into it. Kung ganun nyo kamahal ang cause nyo, ganun kayo dapat mag-invest sa accuracy, ganun kayo dapat mag-invest sa fairness, sa ethics, sa logic, and honing your skills in writing or in talking or in any other craft that you want. Yun lang po.
Again, ma'am, thank you very much again for gracing us today, and we hope that our audiences learned a lot from this session. Everyone, we sincerely appreciate your active participation. You have been a part of an FEU milestone, and we hope that our subsequent programs would have the same success as this. Again, thank you everyone, and Ms. Inday, stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you.
Bye.